Okay, it feels like a great time for a 49ers update. More context on the Brandon Aiyuk situation because I was discussing this on the app formerly known as Twitter today. And I think that looking at the entire marketplace of wide receivers and potential new contracts this offseason is absolutely necessary if we're going to have a realistic discussion of when a potential 49ers deal might get done. And, just to understand all the different forces and maneuvering that is probably going to happen over the course of the next few months, not just with the 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk, but with the rest of the league. It's so important to understand the larger wide receiver market. It is a busy market for the wide receivers this year. This is what I tweeted a little bit earlier today. Brandon Aiyuk is just one of many stars eligible for a new contract at a group where Tyreek Hill's $30 million per year currently leads the position. But Justin Jefferson, he's in the same position as Brandon Aiyuk with the Minnesota Vikings. He's going to be entering his fifth-year option season, set to make about $17 million. Jamar Chase, he's eligible for a new deal this offseason because he's played 3 years. He came into the league a season after Brandon Aiyuk and Justin Jefferson. He wants a new deal. He's entering year 4 with the Cincinnati Bengals. Mike Evans, this is a different situation. Mike Evans, he's already seen multiple contracts in the NFL. He's going to be 31 years old next season, but he's still one of the better receivers in the game. He's set to be an unrestricted free agent. So you have to consider him when you're talking about all of these receivers. And obviously, Brandon Aiyuk, he's entering his fifth-year option. His price tag is about $14.1 million. On top of that, here at the bottom, I added a little note. If you want to read it, there you go. CeeDee Lamb entering his fifth-year option season with the Dallas Cowboys. And T. Higgins is set to be an unrestricted free agent because he was a second-round pick of the Cincinnati Bengals, so no fifth-year option for him. So CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Aiyuk, and Justin Jefferson contractually are in very similar situations. A year of team control still left on their deals, but they want new contracts before they even reach that point. The franchise tag for wide receivers, this is something that is, I think, important to note. The franchise tag is estimated to come in at $20.7 million. And annually, obviously, the franchise tag is a one-year thing. So it's supposed to be at $20.7 million. That's what Spot Track estimates for the 2024 season. Obviously, that franchise tag will not be directly applicable to somebody like Brandon Aiyuk in 2024. But the franchise tag is something that the Players Union hates because it is a pillar in negotiations for teams. So say that the franchise tag is $21 or $22 million for receivers in 2025, the year that Brandon Aiyuk would be applicable for it if no deal is reached by that time. That threat of that franchise tag being at that level can theoretically drag down the value of a potential contract because teams can sit down and say, well, hey, you want a long-term deal? You want to be paid $30 million a year, $31 million a year? You want to make more than Tyreek Hill? Well, the team could counter with, you're under contract for $14.2 million this season to Brandon Aiyuk. We can then tag you the season after that for around $21 or $22 million. And then we can tag you again for that price. And by rule, the second tagging, I think, is 120% of that price. So $24, $25 million. So that's rough math, 25 plus 21, 46 plus 14, 60 million over 3 years. That's 20 million per year. So the franchise tag essentially gives the 49ers nuclear option power to keep somebody like Brandon Aiyuk under contract for $20 million per year, we're estimating right now because we don't know what the tags are going to be for the next 3 seasons. Now, there is value on keeping a locker room happy, and players hate the franchise tag because, as you can see, when you take a look at the receiver market, $20 million per year is not a whole lot. This is from Over the Cap. These are the top wide receiver contracts in the game right now. I sorted it by average per year. Tyreek Hill's at the very top. Devontae Adams at $30 million. Devontae Adams is at $28 million. Behind him, Cooper Kupp, $26.7. AJ Brown, 25 million. And obviously of interest, Deebo Samuel. He's not the prototypical receiver. Deebo Samuel does more. I don't think that he's as good of a man coverage beater as somebody like Brandon Aiyuk, but we predicted that Deebo Samuel would come in somewhere between 23 and 25 million 2 years ago, just based on what the market was looking like. And he chimed in at 23.85 million. Now, what's interesting is, given this busy offseason that we currently see going on, and is just getting started for these wide receivers, what I think is really interesting is looking back at what was also a busy offseason in a different way for Deebo Samuel 2 years ago. Tory Dandy is an agent who, in that 2022 offseason, happened to represent the big three rookie deal wide receivers who were looking for a new contract. It just so happened that Tory Dandy was the agent for all three of them. People were wondering how this would end up. The 49ers and John Lynch were a little bit nervous about it because they knew that Tory Dandy was going to be in a position to essentially negotiate, again, use each of his clients' contracts to get a bigger deal for the next one. But the clients, obviously, each individual one of them wanted the best deal possible for himself. The way that this ultimately was settled was that each of the clients, all three of them, led in a different category. So that way it was technically fair across the board. So AJ Brown, he was traded from the Titans to the Eagles. He signed first. He led an average per year, 25 million per year. DK Metcalf, who signed with the Seattle Seahawks, he led in total guaranteed money, which includes guarantees for injury, 58.2 million per year. See that he's slightly edged out Deebo Samuel and obviously slightly edged out AJ Brown. Meanwhile, Deebo Samuel got the most fully guaranteed money, which I think is one of the most important columns here, because fully guaranteed money, it's going to come to you no matter what, even if you get hurt. So for a player, they want fully guaranteed money. Samuel was at 41 million. We don't have the same kind of agent conflict of interest, if you will, here in 24 with all of these guys, plus CeeDee Lamb, plus T. Higgins looking for contracts. But we still have a lot of wide receivers who are going to be negotiating this offseason. Is that good or bad for the 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk? Well, I think that simple economics says if there are more wide receivers offering their services, it's better for the teams, right? The market is bigger, supply is greater, so the price should theoretically go down. That being said, we had a busy offseason as far as wide receivers went a couple years ago, and Christian Kirk ended up signing for $17 million a year, and he's a guy that I did not expect to sign for $17 million a year. Market dynamics, maybe a run on wide receivers, a run on the position, made the market overheat. And I think that the 49ers certainly would not want the market to overheat regarding Brandon Aiyuk. But they have that franchise tag in their back pocket, not this season, but the season after that, if they really want to play hardball here with Brandon Aiyuk. And what I will say, and I mentioned this yesterday, I talk about the King's ransom being the only thing that could potentially move the 49ers off of Brandon Aiyuk. The reason for that is he's got such a good rapport with the Brock Purdy. And if you're trying to continue the development of somebody like Purdy, which has started so well over the first 2 years here, the last thing you want to do is pull away the receiver with whom he has perhaps his best connection. I mean, we've seen just some startling stuff between Purdy and Brandon Aiyuk on the football field. Ironically, the one play that they didn't connect on, because Aiyuk dropped it in the blowout against the Seahawks in the playoffs once they were quite a bit ahead, that might have been the most impressive, but it was off schedule. Purdy running around, rolling to his right, all the way to the sideline, and just threw a laser into the back corner of the end zone that would still be playing over and over on highlight reels had Aiyuk caught the ball. Big deal. He didn't catch it. I mean, it's tough because we don't see that highlight nearly as often, but to me, that showed just how well these two jibed together. And the 49ers don't want to give that up. They don't want to give up the fact that Brandon Aiyuk is a sensational blocker. Today, I was talking about the Alex Highsmith, DeMonte Casey play from week one, all the way at the start of this long journey that the 49ers just concluded. It was the 65-yard Christian McCaffrey touchdown run. You had Brandon Aiyuk block two people. He blocked the edge rusher, Highsmith, just a quick little chip block. And then he sprinted downfield, took him about 4 seconds to get from point A to point B, and 15 yards downfield, he took out the defensive back with a big pancake in the open field, Casey, to set up the long Christian McCaffrey touchdown. Everything about the 49ers ethos offensively, the mentality is embodied by Brandon Aiyuk. And he's a better man coverage beater than Deebo Samuel, which is, I think, really important to emphasize. Deebo's the bulldozer. Brandon Aiyuk, yeah, I mean, he's got some yak ability too. He's wiry, strong, right? But the separation that he can generate, especially given the fact that I think the 49ers are going to see more man coverage as time goes along, because the Kansas City Chiefs really use that as a blueprint against them in the second half. We'll see more man coverage. You need somebody who could beat that man coverage. And I think that's definitely Brandon Aiyuk. So when we just look at this in the totality of everything, I've got one more graphic that I really want to show you. I think I showed this a little bit earlier in the season, but the final season version of it is damn impressive. This right here is a look at wide receiver production this season. Oh boy. Brandon Aiyuk's not even gonna. We got to scroll over to see Brandon Aiyuk. It's an XY axis. On the X axis, you've got raw separation grade from PFF, and on the Y axis, you have grades as far as catching the ball and yards after the catch. So you want to be further to the right and further up. Look where Brandon Aiyuk is, right here. I mean, for Tyreek Hill, elite, obviously. He's the $30 million man. Brandon Aiyuk up here. The 49ers probably won't be too happy with me for promoting this graph, because this means that Brandon Aiyuk might have to be paid a little bit more. But Brandon Aiyuk is in the top right as an outlier, along with somebody like Tyreek Hill. And, you know, the way that he separates against man coverage is, I think, indispensable for an offense trying to beat a sticky team, a team that is playing really sticky man coverage. You've got to have one of these guys to loosen things up. And when you have a guy that can also deliver yards after the catch in the 49ers system as efficiently as Aiyuk was able to, and you look at his catch and yak grade here on the vertical axis, well, you have a true stud. This doesn't even factor in how well Brandon Aiyuk blocks. I think I have a little bit of an update for you. I'm going to check something really quickly. Just give me a second. You could admire that graph while we're at it. Tim Kawakami of The Athletic, my colleague, says there's been an acceleration to the process of the 49ers hiring a new defensive coordinator. That's all that we have. So this is technically not true, what's underneath me anymore, but I'm going to put it up there while I still can get away with it. All quiet on the 49ers defensive coordinator front search, but Tim Kawakami on Twitter says that he's going to make a guess in his 49ers-focused mailbag column if he can get it written and posted in time. Yes, there's been an acceleration to this process. We'll see if I can do it. So Tim is writing a mailbag. He's going to guess who the 49ers defensive coordinator is going to be. There haven't been any reports of interviews, and Tim reports, though, that there has been an acceleration in the process. So we'll have to go ahead and wait for that. Anyway, back to Brandon Aiyuk. This is the context. He's really damn good. He can block on top of all this. And, I mean, this graph in and of itself shows you why King's Ransom is probably the play for the 49ers. You do not move on in this situation unless somebody absolutely overpays you and blows you away. And even then, it's going to be hard to make your football team better this coming season if you let a player this good out of the building. You cannot discount the rapport that Brandon Aiyuk has with Brock Purdy. You also have to factor in that the 49ers can absolutely pay him for this 2024 season and still pay their draft class. That's something that I went over yesterday. It totally is possible. It's only going to cost the 49ers $3.3 million to pay the entire 11-person draft class. So they have structured this financially in a way that they can push all the chips into the middle of the table this year. It fits. I went over it in detail in the video yesterday. I'm going to go over it in detail in article form. We're going to look at all the charts. You're going to see exactly how this works. There is a question of long-term sustainability, and that's where you always you have to be very careful, especially with Brock Purdy set for that new deal in 2025. I do think that the 49ers are probably going to have to shake some things up in 2025, but the way they've built this is to line things up for a window that doesn't close until after 2024 with the current core. The Purdy inflection point when he signs his contract might make you or encourage you to start turning the page a little bit earlier at some facets of the roster, but it's not really practical with Deebo Samuel, ton of dead money. Not practical with George Kittle, ton of dead money. Plus, they're damn good football players. Why would you want to get rid of good football players at a time where you're trying to return to the Super Bowl? The most tradable contract actually is Brandon Aiyuk's, but he's not a very tradable player as far as you don't want to let a guy this damn good out of your building. So there would have to be quite a return for Brandon Aiyuk to justify the 49ers letting quality like this, outlier quality like this out of the building. I will say that it's just going to be absolutely fascinating to see how that entire busy offseason plays out as far as the busy market this offseason plays out with everything else. The A.J. Brown, Metcalf, Deebo Samuel offseason 2 years ago ended up very symmetrical in the fact that they were all represented by Tory Dandy. It obviously is going to be different this time around, but there are more receivers in play for contracts. And I do think that could end up working in the 49ers' favor just because you've got more supply. The price is probably going to go down. All right, continuing the 49ers update, Ty Davis-Price, their running back or their former running back has signed with the Philadelphia Eagles. So the Eagles have now signed two 49ers third-round picks who didn't last all too long with the 49ers. First, Trey Sermon, who had 2 carries for 9 yards in his time in Philadelphia. Sermon is now with the Indianapolis Colts. That's where the NFL Combine is next week. And now Ty Davis-Price. The 49ers actually cut Ty Davis-Price over the course of the past season and re-signed him to the practice squad. So they had already had one foot out the door on this project. He was only with the 49ers for 2 seasons. Might things have gone differently had he not suffered the high ankle sprain in 2022? I would say yes. I think TDP ran well in week 2 against the Seattle Seahawks before he got hurt. But then they picked up Christian McCaffrey, the 49ers did, and that essentially shut the door on the number 1 running back spot. Elijah Mitchell's been good throughout, especially when he's been healthy, and Jordan Mason emerged in that 2022 season. So they got Mason, they've got McCaffrey, they've got Mitchell, the MMM trio of running backs all under contract, and they don't need Ty Davis-Price anymore. So they didn't sign Ty Davis-Price to an offseason deal. Instead, he is now a Philadelphia Eagle. Perhaps we'll see him at some point playing against the 49ers in the future. And, you know, for those people that are crying foul about the third-round picks on Sermon and Price, guys, we go back to the draft is a crapshoot. As long as you're hitting on the majority of your picks, like you're going to be graded on the aggregate. And the 49ers on the aggregate have built a very talented roster. So I think that the big aggressive swing for Trey Lance in 2021, that's the one that you could tangibly point to and say, ooh, that might have hurt their ability to fortify other areas of the roster. Because when you use 3 first-round picks to trade up to number 3, you obviously decide to forego the opportunity to pick somebody like Penei Sewell, who went in that 2021 draft. And he's a good right tackle for the Detroit Lions now. And the 49ers are looking to spruce up the right side of the line. So, yeah, I think the Trey Lance swing, as aggressive as it was, some people commended it. Some people thought that it was the most idiotic thing ever. I think that it's objective to say it cost there's an opportunity cost. It cost the 49ers chances to improve other parts of their roster. Obviously, they were able to make up for the fact that Trey Lance never really did anything for them by virtue of finding Brock Purdy at pick number 262 a year later. But they did still lose draft capital that could have improved other parts of the roster. That's one where you're using so much capital, pushing so much of it to the middle of the table that you're going to be able to firmly point at, okay, that there was that opportunity cost. We'll have to wear that. I get it for that one because you're pushing 3 first-round picks into the middle of the table. But in the case of the third-round picks used on running backs, I think Christian McCaffrey shows you that in this system, and Kyle Shanahan might not have believed it himself when it actually happened. In this system, you've got to get blue chippers at that running back position because they're not just going to be running the ball. They're going to be heading out for pass patterns. You have to have gravitational force emitted by all skill positions on the offense because otherwise you're not going to be able to manipulate those defensive numbers. And they invested so much into McCaffrey that really poured water on the whole don't invest in running backs crowd. They had to invest in Christian McCaffrey. He was a superstar. And I think that the bigger swings they've taken in the third round on guys like Ty Davis-Price and Trey Sermon have been with that mentality in mind. It was they realized they needed a difference maker at the running back position. They ended up just picking the wrong guy. And that happens in the draft, right? That happens to every team in every draft. You're going to pick wrong on at least one of your picks. Not everybody is going to turn into an NFL star. So the aggregate is the right way to grade it. And the 49ers have not had success drafting these running backs in the third round. They did have success drafting Elijah Mitchell in the sixth round. They're very targeted in that approach. Perhaps that same level of targeted approach for the outside zone is something that the 49ers can replicate moving forward. But the bottom line is that there is no more Ty Davis-Price on their roster. He's with the Eagles, and Trey Sermon is with Indianapolis now by way of Philadelphia. So we're going to keep our eyes on the defensive coordinator search for the 49ers. So far, all quiet on that front. Now, it is a great time to bring you key 49ers offseason dates. This is something that's going to help set the table for the entire 2024 offseason. By this point, I hope that you've had enough time to detox from the Super Bowl and from what I think most of you believe is a very, very tough 49ers loss. I'm sure there's some Chiefs fans in here as well, probably some Eagles fans still gloating, although I'm not sure they have much to gloat about given what happened in early December in Philadelphia. But now it is really time to turn the page. And this will set the table for what's coming up. March 5th is the next key offseason date, obviously following the NFL Combine, which is next week. I'll be headed to Indianapolis for that. But on March 5th, by that time, teams have to apply franchise tags if they want to slap them on players. The 49ers don't have any obvious tag candidates, so I don't think that this will apply to them. Although I put it on the calendar that I made because next season, if they do make Brandon Aiyuk play out on his fifth-year option and he doesn't get that new deal, next season would be the franchise tag year for somebody like Brandon Aiyuk. I don't think it's going to get that far, but just in case it does, that's the date, March 5th. You still can negotiate with a player after you slap the franchise tag on them up through summer. So you can still have them play on a new contract. They don't have to play on that franchise tag unless they miss the second deadline, which is at some point in July. The 49ers have only franchise tagged one player under this regime, and it's been the kicker, Robbie Gould. But before the second deadline in July, they struck a new long-term deal with Gould. On March 11th, which is coming up quickly, the tampering window opens. That means you could begin talking to free agents or pending free agents. They're not actually free agents until March 13th. So everybody that is on the 49ers right now, but isn't under contract for 2024, is still technically with the 49ers. But on March 11th, they can begin talking to other teams, and the 49ers can begin talking to players who are still technically under contract with other teams. Chase Young, for example, can begin talking with other teams on March 11th unless he signs a new deal with the 49ers before then. So right now, if you're the 49ers, you can only talk to free agents who are not with a team, or you can talk to your own guys and try to re-sign them. But by the time that March 11th hits, everybody is able to get in on the conversations, on the negotiations. The deals can become official on March 13th. That is when the new league year officially begins, and that's when free agency officially begins. So you can agree to terms on March 11th and 12th, but you cannot ratify the terms of a new contract with a player on another team until March 13th. About 11 days after that, we'll be headed to Orlando for the NFL owners meetings. Those are going to be March 24th to 27th. I have a little typo there, but 3 days of owners meetings, March 24th to 27th in Orlando. That is usually a very, very good event for collecting key pieces of intel and just generally networking around the league. All the owners, all the coaches, all the GMs are going to be in Orlando, and it should be a fun 3 days. April 1st, the 49ers are going to see some key contract triggers, and I'm going to talk about some of the triggers right now on April 1st. Let's bring the camera back and talk about this. These players are going to see their salaries, or at least part of their salaries, vest into guarantees on April 1st. Deebo Samuel is going to see $16.41 million of his salary vest into a guarantee if he's still on the roster April 1st. Brandon Aiyuk's option is going to be officially exercised on that point, but that's actually already happened. April 1st is just a nominal trigger date for that. So $14.1 million for Brandon Aiyuk. Jake Brendel, $3 million. The center of his salary will be guaranteed on April 1st. Colton McKivitz will see $1 million of his salary guaranteed if he's still on the roster April 1st. Dre Greenlaw will see $2.5 million of his salary guaranteed if he's still on the roster April 1st. And Dre Greenlaw is currently injured, so that's definitely going to happen. He's definitely going to see that guarantee happen. You can't just abandon a player while he has a torn Achilles. That would be very much against the rules. Javon Hargrave is he already had guarantees at signing, so nothing's going to trigger on April 1st. He had $8.85 million that was guaranteed at the time of signing last year. Isaiah Oliver, $1.25 million on April 1st. I would expect the 49ers to release Isaiah Oliver before then. I don't expect Isaiah Oliver to be with this team next year after he was benched this season. And obviously they're looking for more change of direction at cornerback. So that nickel spot, I think that Isaiah Oliver, if you get rid of him before April 1st, you don't owe him the $1.25 million. You can save a little bit more than $2 million by cutting or trading Isaiah Oliver before that point. And the punter, Mitch Wishnowsky, will see $1 million vest into total guarantees or full guarantees on April 1st. So that's a key date on the calendar. That happens after the owners' meetings, after the first and second waves of free agency. And then on April 15th, after all that contractual stuff is settled, the offseason program will begin. Veterans obviously show up to the offseason program, not rookies, because rookies have not entered the league yet at that point. Rookies won't enter the league until after the NFL draft, which is April 25th to 27th. The 49ers have 11 picks in that draft. And as I've reported, that 11-player draft class will cost them just $3.3 million. Could be a real bargain for San Francisco. They can fit it into a limited amount of cap space, but a manageable amount of cap space. Moving forward, May 10th to 13th, 49ers rookie minicamp. That is when the rookies are going to show up for the first time. And then the veterans will return for OTAs and mandatory minicamp if the 49ers decide to hold it this year. And they have. They've just moved it up in the past couple of years, but that would be in June before breaking for the summer. So I hope that helps. Those are your key 49ers offseason dates. I think that should just help you conceptualize what's going to happen. I think some of my salary cap work can help you conceptualize the financial nitty-gritty of what's about to happen. But just know that draft picks, they're much cheaper than veterans. $3.3 million for 11 players in 2024. That's what the 49ers draft class, based on where they're picking, is slotted to cost. And that's going to be a really important puzzle piece as they try to solve this offseason. All right, I think I've gone through everything. So let's open up a 49ers Q&A. What does OTA stand for? Organized Team Activities. So it's basically spring football. Which unrestricted free agents are likely to net the 49ers compensatory picks? Well, it's a complicated formula, but it's based on pay. So we'll have to see who gets paid what by opposing teams. And then we'll have to see which free agents the 49ers sign themselves. And then it's all balanced out. So you have to play that compensatory formula smartly to ensure that you do get some picks. And the 49ers have been really good about that in recent seasons. What do we see happening with Javon Kinlaw? I'm not sure, but I wouldn't say that Javon Kinlaw is an A-lister, so it's not going to be a mandatory re-sign for the 49ers. If they can get him back at a discount, because there's going to be some big defensive tackles on the market this year that could depress Kinlaw's value, just like it could hurt somebody like Brandon Aiyuk. Well, if they can get him back at a discount, I know they're very happy with the way that Javon Kinlaw progressed in his first fully healthy season in 2023. Why don't the 49ers get somebody like Vita Vea? Well, it'd be nice to just sign all pros and star players at every single position. But unfortunately, the 49ers have done a damn good job of racking up on star power, but you can't just point at the wall and say you want this, 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 and this, and everything come true. I mean, these are coveted players. It's a competitive league. Everybody wants stars. And Vita Vea is, I mean, he's a dominant force inside. If the 49ers got him, well, I mean, then they definitely wouldn't be bringing Javon Kinlaw back. And they probably won't bring Javon Kinlaw back because I think somebody's going to be willing to pay him some serious money next year. But you can't just snap your finger and get every single player in the league. How would I prioritize needs by position? I think that the clear top need for improvement in this 49ers team is the right side of the offensive line. Ronnie Bell got a 49ers tattoo. Well, I mean, it's not his choice if he's staying or not. He's under a rookie contract. He has to stay if they want him for the next 3 years. It's a 4-year deal, but interesting that he got a 49ers tattoo. You know what? I'm not going to speculate on the defensive coordinator position. No, the 49ers haven't leaked anything. Kyle Shanahan has said he could take this in a number of ways. And I think that if Bullocks or Sorensen were, or even Johnny Holland were true candidates, they would have gone to them last year instead of going to Steve Wilks. I think part of the reason they went to Steve Wilks is because they felt compelled to go outside with not enough play calling experience on the current staff. Now, maybe in the years since, stuff has developed on that front, but let's just sit back and wait to see what happens, because there has been no information coming out of the 49ers building. This is something that we should just talk about once it actually happens. B. Lauren thinks that given the silence, defensive coordinator is going to be a surprise. We'll see. I'll be ready to react to the news whenever it does happen. Gregis Khan thinks that the 49ers defensive coordinator hire is going to send shockwaves throughout the league. We shall see. And he predicts that it's going to be announced by Friday. We'll hold you to it, Gregis. Do I think the 49ers will sign Quan Alexander because he's cheap and has experience in the system? Isn't more likely Aziz Al-Shire? I mean, both Quan and Aziz Al-Shire are scheduled to be unrestricted free agents. Aziz is going to be younger, so we'll see. But I think the 49ers will have some options there because they've done a good job with their linebackers in their building, and those linebackers have gone elsewhere, done some good stuff. And 49ers, it's such an important position for them. They wouldn't mind bringing one of these guys back while Dre Greenlaw is recovering. If Jimmy Garoppolo comes back as a backup for the 49ers this year on an incentive-based deal, the internet would probably break. 49ers Twitter would not handle it well. And I mean, I think it would be a good signing as a backup quarterback. I mean, he's very popular in that building. He's always been popular with his teammates. The market, after the positive test for whatever it was some kind of medication that was prescribed but wasn't pre-cleared with the NFL. That means a 2-game suspension, and it might depress the market for his services. As the same can be said of his season in Las Vegas, which obviously didn't go well. So I think that I look at the backup QB spot. The 49ers take it really seriously after what happened in 2022. And I think they're going to want to bring in somebody who needs some reputation repair. But that's the only way you can afford a veteran with some upside. So Sam Darnold needed some reputation repair. Brought him in this year. Does that give Sam Darnold a springboard to get a better opportunity contractually somewhere else? If it does, then you bring in your next reputation repair QB. Is it Jimmy Garoppolo? Maybe, maybe not, though. I mean, there is history here. I think both good and bad. I think that there has been a little bit of bad blood between his side and Shanahan's side. I think that both men got the best out of each other over the course of their time together, but sometimes some things just run their course and you don't want to return to them. But again, I'll return to my original point. It would absolutely smash 49ers Twitter, 49ers YouTube, 49ers media if that did happen. Margot and I are going to a wine event tonight, and it's good. I'm still waiting for her to get back home, but I appreciate that. I want to keep this rolling, though. I almost feel like it's my duty to connect with you guys. So hopefully we'll get Margot on at some point this week as well. But I've got some time on my hands. I haven't been writing as much this week, but I will be writing a couple big pieces here to finish the week. And then I'm going to the NFL Combine. But we are going to an event, Nashville wine auction event tonight. So that should be fun. I'll report back. We will be going to Europe. We're not sure when. We might go twice. That's a good question, though. But we're excited. We're going to figure out. We're going to sit down tomorrow, actually, and chart out some of the offseason travel. When the 49ers went to the Super Bowl this year, it really, really created a backlog and stuff. Like today, I was just playing catch up with a lot of the offseason planning, and we still haven't planned any of the vacations. That's something that we're going to do tomorrow. I put all the focus on the 49ers. Now I've backed off a little bit, but I got to turn around and head to the NFL Combine on Sunday. I'll pass on the message. We'll make time for the wife tonight. No, a replacement for Adam Peters hasn't been announced, but the 49ers have said that they're doing this internally. So it's either going to be Tariq Ahmad, who's the director of college scouting, or RJ Gillen, who's the director of pro scouting, or a combination of both of them. I would expect John Lynch to have an answer for us by next week in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine. In 2021, I was probably leading the charge. I was the one saying the 49ers need to improve their offensive line. It's not like they've been inactive on this front. In 2021, they gave Trent Williams the biggest deal in the history of deals for offensive linemen. They drafted Aaron Banks in the second round. They signed Alex Mack, an all-pro. It's just they need to invest more. An offensive line is a big unit. It's not just one guy. An offensive line is 5 players, and I think you need depth. I think you need at least 7, preferably 8 competent bodies to win a Super Bowl, to make it through the rigors of an NFL season. So it's not going to just be one off season of investment. It needs to be continuous investment. I think the 49ers might have been a little bit light on it over the past couple of years, ever since that big 2021 offseason. So it is important for them to continue pouring resources into that offensive line, especially given the fact that statistically, the right side of the O-line was the worst part of the 49ers team this past year. There's a rumor that Bill Belichick was born in the Bay Area. I had no clue where Bill Belichick was born. Let me look this up. Something makes me doubt this. No, he was born in Nashville. Bill Belichick was born where I am right now. He was born in Nashville, Tennessee. So, to answer a question that was passing through the chat, Bill Belichick was not born in the Bay Area. It might be time to activate Jesse Sapolo. You know, Jesse Sapolo watches the show. So maybe he can chime in the comment section and let us know if it is indeed time to activate him. I see him at games. Great guy. Gotta love Jesse Sapolo. All right, let's all go visit Joe in England. I think we're going in July. You can email me. I think we're going in July. I think we're going to go check out Wimbledon. Drake Jackson is recovering from knee surgery. So he's hoping to be ready for training camp, ready for the start of next season. Yes, I absolutely think that Kyle Juszczyk will be back next season. He's one of the most valuable 49ers. They get amazing bang for their buck with Kyle Juszczyk. His cap hit is scheduled to be about $7 million. The way that he unlocks plays with his blocking, obviously is a threat catching and running the football. Hell, he's even the backup holder that came up big in 2021. Kyle, and he could run the quarterback sneak for the 49ers as well. Kyle Juszczyk is very valuable, and I fully expect him to be back. I'll look for your email. Thank you. You know, I've been a little off the grid. I know I do these videos, but I have a lot of friends that were wondering why I haven't been texting them back. I kind of just decided to lay low. Like I said, like somebody was saying, dedicate more time to your wife. Yeah, I've been doing all that stuff, but I couldn't answer every single person's text message over the course of the past 10 days leading up to the Super Bowl and then after the Super Bowl. So a lot of people like needed therapy basically because of the Super Bowl. I'm like, okay, guys, I'll talk on the YouTube channel, but I cannot be like staring down at my phone all day. I have to take a little bit of time to let the brain breathe. Yes, Pete Carroll is from the Bay Area. Redwood High School, Larkspur, College of Marin, Kent Field. College of Marin is where I teach. I'm currently not teaching there right now, but a couple semesters ago, I taught at College of Marin. He was classmates with Robin Williams. Pete Carroll was up there in Marin County. Got somebody from Tiburon. Do people know what Tiburon means? It means shark. That means I should probably swim there. Do I think Kyle cringed on the Purdy runs? No, I think Kyle Shanahan was happy that Purdy used his legs when they were needed to deliver an NFC championship. But yes, the Chiefs started spying him, but I think that's great news for the 49ers. If NFL defenses respect Brock Purdy's legs enough to spy him, there are going to be resulting opportunities in the pass game that the 49ers should be ready to capitalize on next year. So funny enough, people are talking about Redwood High School in Marin County where Pete Carroll and Robin Williams went. There's a second Redwood High School in California. It's in Visalia. It's in my hometown. And Redwood was my high school's rival high school. So I went to Mount Whitney and we played Redwood and we played them for the cowhide. That's the actual thing. Like it's a piece of cow skin, the big time rivalry. And It might have died off over the years, but back in the 90s and the 2000s, I was in high school in the 2000s, '06 or '02 to '06. Uh, this was a big deal. You got a little flavor of Texas high school football in Central California, and Mount Whitney and Redwood High School would play for the Cowhide. Very Central Valley thing for you at the Mineral King Bowl, downtown Visalia. Good memories. Every time I say something about Visalia, people come out of the woodwork in the comment section saying they're from Visalia. I love it. You want Aziz Al-Shire to replace Greenlaw? Here's one of our Visalia commenters, Stephen Crisp. And here, Mike Urtaza saying the Mount Whitney is greater than Redwood. Good stuff. All right, 45 minutes seems about right. We're going to end it on the Mount Whitney is greater than Redwood note. Hopefully you enjoyed the Brandon Aiyuk context. There's a lot of it. Busy offseason for wide receivers in that market and their agents. That's certainly going to play into how the 49ers approach things. But I think the bottom line is the 49ers are in the position of power here. They've got cap space. Don't let anybody fool you into thinking they don't. They actually do. They can run it back with this group. Obviously, everything's on the table depending on what the demands here are. But if the 49ers want to play hardball, you got fifth-year option, franchise tag. You could have 3 years of team control at about $20 million per year. So I think Brandon Aiyuk's really damn valuable to this team. There's a reason why he's way more likely to stay with them than anything else happening. You just have to brace yourselves for all possibilities because the NFL can be an unpredictable terrain. All right, everybody, we'll talk to you soon. I'm going to go drink some wine, but I'll stop drinking wine if the 49ers hire a defensive coordinator. How about that? We'll see you then, or we'll see you soon. Either one, the news will continue.